Can you imagine it? A tournament that utilised a broken power that allowed mere mortals to stand near the top, wielding the strongest powers in all the universe. That was Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite Battle for the Stones.
Yeah, he's trying to get all this to be goes through. Wow. Reflecting to the hyper and nice confirming that.
There is the look on Ryan's face.
Oh my goodness, it looks like Steve won.
Steve's the trophy.
I don't know how long this is how well it's gonna translate on stream, but I'm doing it.
Yes, it lights up. Woo, fancy stuff.
Yeah.
We're in there.
So I was trying to get inspirations for my tournament I hosted a couple of weeks back where every player got a power. This all started with a conversation I had with Serp when I was at VSF. We were watching Keno's Jeopardy game show and it was class, it was genuine bands. I sat there, joined the show and I was like, damn, I wish I was there sooner. Keno brought up the tournament Battle for the Stones, asking the players what every stone did. I sat there in awe as Serp told me what they did after looking them up, and she told me everything about the stones, and again I was in shock. I was like, there's no way there's a tournament like this where powers existed for a short few selected players. We're talking about powers like denying a loss in a set, changing the controls of your opponent. It was ridiculous. I'll get into talking about all that. I'll talk about the three main points, the setup of the tournament itself, and what happened after all of it. What's up, fellas? Patriarch Panda here. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Be sure to like and subscribe, hype it, all that type of stuff. This is going to be a pretty in-depth one, so get ready for a long ride. Get some popcorn, get something to drink. So be sure to check out the Grappler series. I don't know what Grappler I cover next. I actually have no idea, so that would actually help me a ton if you guys could give me some ideas. Let's get started by talking about the setup for this tournament that led to absurd power. So what made this tournament so insane? The point where I had to make a video on it. 6 people had to qualify through tournaments and 7 of them were previous Marvel vs. Capcom 3 champions invited to the event. The final 3 slots were people that could qualify through playing in onlines. So that made a total of 16 players. It seems unfair to the peeps going to events or playing onlines. Like, there had to be an incentive. 7 people just got in for free. There had to have been some type of thing that made you want to qualify. Well, this tournament was called Battle for the Stones. These 6 tournaments all had a prize that was worth fighting for. The Infinity Stones, all blessed with different powers that could affect the tournament to levels that we have never seen twisted before. Every tournament had a stone with a different ability attached to it. And another neat thing, that people that were invited to the tournament but still went to the majors and won were not allowed to get a stone. That went to 2nd place. Also, no one knew what these stones done until someone won that qualifier. So people were excited to see how these were going to change the pace of the tournament, because you had no idea what any of these things were going to do until someone won that cup. It was exciting because you had no idea what any of the stones were going to do until it came up, right? Until you saw who won that cup and won everything. Someone could have won the Canada Cup, found out what their stone was, and it lets them to poke their opponent in the eyes and take a free win. You know, you never knew. Nobody knew. So it was exciting, right? It was an exciting time that people were looking forward to. Let's talk about the stones, the people that won them, and what was the abilities on the table. First, we will talk about the Space Stone. This was won by Sactap in the SoCal Regional. This stone allowed the bear to swap his position in the bracket. So if you didn't like your seating, fight another dude that you thought was free as this stone would be strong and confident hands. Next was Richard Nugent, I hope I'm saying that right, who won the Soul Stone at the EU Finals at Milan Games. The Soul Stone was busted. It would deny a match loss, meaning you lost a tight match. Well, no you didn't, you got another chance. So if it was 2-2, then it was 2-1. The Time Stone won by Kazunoko at the Southeast Asia Major. This stone was an Uno reverse card. It said nope, you didn't get to use your power, and it denies any power stone. Pretty simple, but busted at Grand Finals.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
Power Stone was obtained by Cloud, who is a well-known name when it comes to tag fighters. I feel like a lot of people know him for his Piccolo for sure, and he won the Red Bull Proving Grounds. This stone basically gave you the first hit in a set. That combo was powerful as he could do what he wanted for the first hit. The Mind Stone won by Timo at the Canada Cup was an evil stone to obtain. It made it so for a game, it made it so the bearer chose the opponent's characters, meaning you could pick someone uncomfortable with, or even the low tiers of the game like Hulk and Black Panther. The last one, the Reality Stone, won by Linjay in the Latin America Finals for the Capcom Pro Tour. Sadly, he couldn't make it due to visa issues, so that went to Brian Kusanago, which is a damn shame. The bearer can change the controls of their opponent. That's just disgusting. That's all the stones and all the bearers. There's a ton of potential for this tournament to be amazing with all of these different setups in play. However, only 6 people obtained those stones, compared to the 16 players taking part, so you can see where disaster was going to lie. There are some rules that you have to take note of. A stone could only be used once. Whoever bet a stone bearer obtained it, and that stone would refresh so the new one could use it. You could only use one stone in a set, so a guy stacking them had to decide which one to use, and those were the basic rules. It made one wonder, how did the tournament work out? Well, it didn't turn out as well as we hoped, as a lot of people, especially the players, were not fond of it. But let's talk about the tournament, and then we'll talk about all that later. The tournament happened and there was 3 stones aside, so everything was set up perfectly for a fun time. We got to keep in mind, this tournament was played for money. $2,000 for taking part, and the first place got $22,000. You can imagine this being a bit silly to watch as a spectator, or being in the position of a player. Besides that, an awesome gimmick that should have maybe been just an invitational or maybe a low stakes tournament, as C4 was telling me as I was talking to them about the event. The only other issue that you could see from watching it was the production. It didn't have that polish like Red Bull Kumite, Evo, or hell, even UFA and EU Major. I get this was 2017, but you could still add a bit more love to the production on this. That's my viewpoint at least. It felt very like last minute watching it. People are just sitting on the floor and vibing, which don't get me wrong, that's my kind of vibe, right? I got that homeless man energy. But like for a big event like this where major money was being played and it was a qualifier, imagine you went to Capcom Tour, Tekken Tour, a damn Arxis World Tour, and you were sat on the floor. Like, it really struck me as a very low production thing because of that. It felt like this event was way bigger than any other event in terms of what they were trying to do, but then it was treated with the same level of severity as any other tournament, and I don't think that should have been the case. I felt like Capcom should have made this much bigger, right? We're battling for the Infinity Stones, you know? It's a larger idea, and it felt like they didn't give a damn, or it was last minute. So that's my viewpoint. It needed more flair, it needed more oomph to the event. Besides my complaints, let's talk about the most interesting moments of this tournament. At Winners Top 16, no one really used their stones. I think a lot of them wanted to hold on to their stone for that one set. So it was about the usual with the players just playing normal MVCI. This game's fun to watch, but I wish it had some kind of polish to its look. I really do miss that MVC freestyle, because it's fairly ugly, not gonna lie. So Kazunoko and Brian lost and did not use their stones. This was a major upset for sure, as they lost without using the main gimmick of the tournament. They just accepted it, they didn't try to use it to make a comeback. Then we got to winners round 2, we started off with Sactap and Stealth fighting. However, Sactap lost without using his stone, and Stealth took it proudly, and this was the Space Stone. It lets you change where you were going to be in the bracket. The next highlight set was Chris G and Cloud facing off, and they were both holding a stone. The first game, Cloud decided to use the Power Stone immediately, getting the first set of the game. However, he dropped the combo and lost that match, and then Chris G decided to use the Mind Stone right at him, giving him a horrible team to play with, being Hulk and Black Panther. And Cloud lost the game. And after all that, it seemed hopeless for Cloud, but for some reason, that man locked in, despite the use of his power not working out, and despite the fact that Chris G won with his. He didn't give a damn, and he reverse 3-0'd the fella, sending Chris G down to loser side, and Cloud continued on to winner semis. An actual upset that was insane. He definitely deserved that win, you can't argue it. One of the main moments to note was after Justin Wong bet Brian, he got his Reality Stone, and after that set, Justin used it immediately against his opponent RyanLV. This stone was the one that changed the controls. Ryan's expression said it all, as Justin made all of his buttons weird. Ryan just gave up that match, which is so real. Despite that upset, Ryan clutched it after being in a 2-1 situation, and Ryan took that stone, knocking Justin Wong down to loser side. One massive set was between Richard and F-Champ, took them to the distance. However, to deny that lead, Richard used the Soul Stone to set it from 2-2 to 2-1, denying This win is crazy. I can't believe he did that to F-Champ. Again, this is the insanity of this tournament. You went like 2-2? Nah, 2-1. Insanity. However, straight after that, it was the correct play to make because Richard lost that game and it went straight back to 2-2. And it went down to a game 6 scenario. Where can you say that? Where else can you say that? Richard won it, and the entire time the commentators were just mentioning how salty everyone would be. And I'm not gonna lie, the commentators did not help with the perspective of this tournament. A lot of them talking about how salty the players would be, or I would be twisted, I would be a little peed off. And I'm like, for production wise, I'm not blaming them, but it's something where it's like, this wouldn't have helped the perception of the tournament, you know? And it was a pretty big deal, as the spectators could certainly feel it as well. It was fun to watch as a spectator, but again, if you realize the position of the players, your mind starts going like, yeah. It was winners round 2. And top 8 was sorted on winner's side, and my god, was it insane, right? They come back from Cloud, or the fact that Richard just denied a 3-2 against his opponent F-Champ. It was disgusting. It was genuinely disgusting. Loser's side was not really worth watching because it didn't have any of the stones, but there were some tight sets that were absolutely worth watching as a competitor, like allowing and Flocker going down to the wire. Holy, that set had so many emotions. I was shook. Before top 8 even started, Stealth used his stone to fight RyanLV instead of fighting Cloud. The space stone usage was used, but we'd have to wait and see for that set, as we had Cloud and Richard up first. Cloud was up 2-0 and Richard didn't use any stones that were left. Cloud won that set for clean 3-0 without any stones available to him, so it was pretty good to watch. But back to Stealth and Ryan. Stealth was up 2-0, and then Ryan decided to use the reality stone. Now keep in mind, Stealth wanted to fight Ryan. Stealth viewed Ryan as free, so Ryan using the reality stone shook things up as it allowed him to take a game. You were down 2-0, now it was up 2-1. It was an entertaining situation as he used that stone to change the buttons on the controller. This could be the beginning of a comeback for sure, as you can tell Ryan won it, and then it continued on to being a 2-2 situation, which is insane. Ryan took it to the final hit and got that win, meaning the Space Stone gave you an enemy you could not beat. Now that is a cool usage of the stones being denied. Now that is something where I'm like, this is where this tournament certainly works out. In winners finals, you had Cloud and Ryan playing. Keep in mind, see what I did there? Cloud obtained that Mind Stone and it was available. It went down in game 3 where Cloud lost 2 games in a row, so Cloud answered with the only thing he knew how to use, his Mind. The Mind Stone came into play, making Ryan use Hulk and Black Panther. Cloud cashed out with and starting the comeback. The set continued as normal and Cloud was able to tie up 2-2. Another down to the wire set. Imagine the pressure these players would be feeling. Final game, no stones, just a clean one-on-one. Cloud got Chun-Li, and now he just had to get the Morgan. Cloud won the set with a scummy use of the Mind Stone, and it was absolutely beautiful to witness. As Yipes kept saying, it was scummy, and you know what, again, I see where we're all coming from as a viewer perspective, but again, that does not help the perspective of this unique tournament. It's so odd, because I want more stuff like this, but at the same time, you can totally get when high stakes are on the line. No, we shouldn't be having stuff like that. Imagine Street Fighter did this with the $1 million prize pool. This would piss everyone off. Updates on loser's side. Chris G was fighting his way through to get to loser's finals. He honestly stuck in to get all the way to face Ryan. Loser's side had no stones, so it's not interesting compared to those sets, but there were some amazing sets in loser's side. Chris G won with a clean 3-0, knocking Ryan out at 3rd place. And it was all to grand finals, which took place on another day. One entire set took place on the next day. Odd, but this was the PlayStation experience, and we'll be talking about that a lot later, don't you worry. Cloud had collected all the stones, and Chris was given the Time Stone, which denied the use of the stones, meaning the grand finals didn't have any form of stone usage. This is the problem with gimmick-based tournaments. There's a technique to deny one of the gimmicks. And the fact that the tournament for grand finals was hosted on a different day compared to taking the entire tournament and doing it on that same day at the same place is so stupid, because the entire audience that was there were from the PlayStation experience. Most of the audience wasn't from the actual showing. So that means they have no idea what happened in top 8 or top 16. Meaning they missed out on the most interesting thing about the tournament being the stone usage. They just heard that the stones would be used, but you have to keep in mind Cloud only really had one stone because he's used all 4 of them. The only thing that he had left was the Mind Stone. However, once you've given your opponent the Time Stone, that means they just denied the stone. And the most interesting thing about this tournament was completely thrown up in the wind.
First question will be to you, Mr. Chris G. Are you going to use any of your Infinity Stones?
Yeah, I mean, I got one.
Oh, he's going to use the Infinity Stone. Okay. But which one?
Time.
Time, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to be the stone that he's going to use somewhere, and he's going to activate it in the set. Now, this is your chance. Your rebuttal. Cloud 805, will you be using one of your Infinity Stones?
No.
No, Cloud's not going to use any of his Infinity Stones. Good, clean fight. I like you.
And yeah, the people watching it were like, oh, where's the stones? And it's like, well, they can't use it. You give one guy all of them, you give one guy a denial, what's going to happen?
No.
No, Cloud's not.
Exactly. He gets denied. It had no use of the stones, and it was just insanely high level set Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. It was a hype set that went back and forth, but no one used the stones, and that kind of made it anticlimactic. It was a good set, but the main appeal was the gimmick, so not seeing it in Grands because of the Time Stone was just silly. Should have changed the Nut Stone to something else. Cloud won with an amazing pop-off, grabbing Tasty Steve and carrying him like the trophy. God damn, it looks like he wanted to take him home. And he got the gauntlet, and that was the end of it. There was no more Marvel vs. Capcom Pro Tours. Oh! How did this happen? There's still interest. You still had players like Justin Wong taking part in tournaments, moving about, traveling for all this. So, like, what happened? Still an interest from the player base playing it, so what in the hell happened? Well, let's talk about it in the after part, which is starting right now. The final chapter. First thing to note, the game wasn't that well received from the public. The roster was small compared to previous games, and the roster also looked really ugly, with Chun-Li being memed to death. She's known as the most beautiful woman in all of Capcom. Another thing, the big competitor stepped out, being Dragon Ball FighterZ, and boy did it take the world by storm, with that game still being revered as one of the biggest community fighting games of all time. After their last character that they announced for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite dropping, they didn't announce anything afterwards, kind of leaving the game to the wayside. When it came to the tournament, I don't think it was hosted again because the players did not like the stones. I felt like it was a bit of an off gimmick and it was very unbalanced. When talking to C4, he basically told me that was the main viewpoint from the players, and when asking him, should this just have been an invitational or maybe a low stakes tournament, he said yes, because then it would have been more entertaining without the drawback of losing everything. One massive issue was the event was hosted by the PlayStation Experience. This closed a year after due to the lack of announcements or anything put on show. This thing was used to announce games, kind of like Tokyo Game Shows or the Summer Game Events or the Game Awards. This was used to announce games. However, PlayStation didn't have enough games to really justify having an event for it to show off their games. Because this event was used to fund like Capcom Pro Tour for stuff like that, and because they decided not to do a PlayStation Experience because, say it with me, PlayStation has no games. It meant that the funding was cut from those things like the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite tournaments, and it was never hosted again. Capcom Pro Tour still went on for Street Fighter. Street Fighter is still a massive game. They were given one of the most ugliest looking fighting games of the time, and people still played it. Then you disappeared, and all the announcements disappeared afterwards. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite shortly died after this, with only the community really playing it. The game was planned to have a big future, but because of the lack of interest, this never came into fruition. And this is what Kennel, a fellow commentator, had to say about everything that went on in terms of Capcom and its leaks.
MVCI afterwards, not like I said, nothing happened until obviously we got our Max mods. We'd had a couple updates, but not much than that. Then you had the big leak that was by Filipino Champ, who said, hey, this game was going to be massive. It was eventually going to have the mutants. It was eventually going to have like really good returning characters. But obviously, you know, the game itself is, you know, it's built on essentially the models from MVCI, but stripped of the art style that jumps on top of them, so they're a bit more bland, made to be a little bit more real.
There were so many potential things that could have happened if this game stayed alive, but this is when people were calling Capcom crapcom at this point, because they released Resident Evil 6, DMC Devil May Cry, Dead Rising 3, which wasn't it's a good game, but it has issues, right? MVCI, Street Fighter 5, and the people behind the board were telling you that you didn't like the characters because of the characters, you liked it because of their functionality. People told Capcom at this point that they were sick of them. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite died off, but it didn't die off completely, as last year Maximilian and a lot of his crew got involved to make Marvel vs. Capcom and Infinite Beyond, which is an awesome fan-made mod that tries to restore a lot of the classic visuals that the community likes while adjusting the balancing of the game. And a lot of people came to this, they really sprang at it, wanting to play it again, meaning that there is a player base that wants to play this game. It's just that Capcom are stupid. They're very stupid. In terms of the tournaments, it's all side events and online, right? There is no major for this game after that tournament. We leave this video on a sad note for sure. A unique tournament that had many issues, something to grasp viewers, but they left the game in the state it was in, and the interest for Capcom being an all-time low. It makes sense for something like this to die, and it frustrates any players involved with the game. I think it would be cool if the community hosted an invitational where players got a stone, and I think that would be an awesome idea. Fellas, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Be sure to like and subscribe, use the hype feature as it pushes it in the algorithm, and if you want to become a member, or if you want to use the kofi, it'd be greatly appreciated. It helps me out, it helps me make more videos like this. Also try and get 5,000 subscribers, as I will cover a video on Zangief, the original grappler that covered it all. But tell me what I should cover next, and I want you guys to check out Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and Beyond. I felt like that was an awesome mod that really rejuvenated the game, so if you notice the game's ever on sale, like the autumn sale right now, cash out, get the mod, and I'll tell you, the game's fun. The game actually does have some fun. Now it just feels like a Marvel game. That's everything I've got to say, and that's Panda signing out, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya!